In this workshop we'll focus on installation of ComfortClient and thereafter its initial configuration. My name is Julian Wigman and I am the principal developer. So we'll start by looking at where we source the distribution media from. I'm going to go to my website, Future Home Software. If you're also a user of the SciTech community, the Comfort forums, then you have download links there as well, plus other information as well on use of ComfortClient. So first of all, we'll go to the download link and we'll download the application, and I'll run it straight from the download rather than save it to disk first. As you see, it's pretty quick to download. It's a single .exe file, which is actually a self-extracting zip file. Once it's downloaded, you'll see the installation will automatically start. Now you'll notice there's a blue banner at the top of this dialog box. This is to warrant that this is a Authenticode signed application. This means that it is linked to me as the verified publisher. It means that it hasn't been changed since I published it to the internet. So you can be fairly sure that this is the application as I intended it to appear. No tampering, etc. So we say yes to that. You'll see now it started the installer and it's starting to unzip the file. And we're presented with our first dialog screen, which is the welcome screen. Press next to that. The license agreement is fairly simple. It's very representative of what SciTech also use for their configurator product. It's there purely to protect my initial intellectual property rights. Press next to that. Now we've got the option now whether we want to install samples. Samples are pre-canned floor plans that give you a good starting point for seeing and investigating and playing with some of the features of the product. So we'll leave that tick for the present. We then ask where we want to install the application. By default it goes to the C drive. If you want to change that, you're happy to do that. And then we're ready to install. As you can see, it's a pretty quick application to install. The final dialog screen asks me whether I want to start ComfortClient automatically. Typically this is linked to upgrades that you might do later. You're in ComfortClient and you're presented with a download link. You can fire it from there and afterwards it will restart the application for you and where you left off. For the moment we're going to say no to that. You'll see now it's put 3 icons on our desktop, one by virtue of us picking the sample checkbox. The other 2 are the normal runtime links that we've got in the system. So generally most of the things you're going to be doing are being ComfortClient. When you're in ComfortClient you can link out to the floor plan editor to build your floor plan designs, but I've also included floor plan editor as a standalone as well. So for people like resellers that want to hide that functionality, they can do that if they'd like to. Okay, so let's start up the sample application first, just to give you an example of what the look and feel is like. So this is a licensed application, so I charge a small fee as a one-off perpetual license to use the product in up to 3 machines. So it's really there to help me recoup some of the development costs. I'm not in this to make money. I spend my time developing this product in my own time, but I have certain costs that I have to do as well as part of that development. So I need to recoup those as well. So it's a small license fee just to help me to do that exercise. So I can go to Buy Now, press the Buy Now button if I want to go off to PayPal. So if I press that now, you'll see it'll go off to PayPal and it'll bring up a PayPal instruction. So if you've already got a PayPal account, then you can fill that in, or you can just use a debit card. Okay, so you'll see this is the full price. SciTech also promote the product along with its UCM Ethernet 3 cards, so you will see discounts from time to time as well that you can take advantage of. We'll continue with the evaluation for the moment. As you can see, it puts information up on the screen as it goes through that the load of the product. It's loading some standard connectors here, which we will talk about in later workshops. And then it's put some tabs up on the screen here for the different workflows that we installed as part of the sample kit. Okay, in the middle panel here, the main panel, you've got your workspaces, which typically are floor plans, but you can also put browser tabs as well. So if you've got links to your IP cameras, then you can put those in those windows as well. Off to the right here, we've got a keypad, which is a representation of the SciTech keypad. We've extended that slightly. In the bottom section here, we call this a control pad. This is where we've got information such as your monitor window, where you can see any events coming in from the SciTech system, and any outbound events as well. Things like your event log, if you want to download the event log from your Comfort system, then you can do that. Home control menu, these are things that you'll be familiar with from use of your Comfort system. Okay, we'll come back to some of these in more detail in later exercises. At the top here we've got a menu system where we can configure the product. We can also do various runtime things as well. Again, these will be subjects for later workshops. So we'll come out of that for the moment. And instead this time we're going to start the main Comfort application. So instead of continuing with the evaluation here, what I'm going to do is install a license key. Now if you've gone off and purchased one from PayPal, then it will email automatically back within a minute or so your license key, and then you would paste that license key into this box here, press the install license button here over the right hand side here, and it would install the license key for you. But what I'm going to do, rather than show you my own license key, is to load the license in from a file, which is one I saved earlier. So once you've authenticated with the product and installed your license, you'll see the save button ungrays, and I could save that out. So because I licensed the product for up to 3 machines, then obviously the first time you do it for the first machine, you would enter the license key. For subsequent machines, you would just apply the same license from the saved file. Okay, so let's close that and we'll start ComfortClient up as normal. Now you'll notice this is different from when we started up the sample application. This is because we're entering what we call FastStart mode. So whereas in the sample application I pre-configured some information automatically for you, for this, for a runtime, the production system, then really I want to capture some other information as well. The first thing I need to know is where your Comfort configuration file is. So you'll be familiar that you set your system up in Comfort by using Configurator, the Cytec product, and that stores its configuration settings to a CCLX file. ComfortClient, by the way, is version 2 only, so if you've got a Comfort 1 system, I would strongly advise you upgrade your hardware. There's a lot of benefit, a lot of great features in the version 2 hardware that you can benefit from. So let's go and browse to find my CCLX file. So we pick that. The other thing it's asking me that I can potentially set at this stage is where I want my user data to be placed. Now when we install the application, all the application files, if we go and look in Windows Explorer, all go to wherever we told it to go, which in this case was into the C drive program x86, and there's all our installation files. But we're not, under Microsoft rules for developing applications, not meant to be putting user data in that folder structure. So generally what happens is by default the files go into this program data folder, which is what Microsoft recommend is the sort of default application data folder for users. Now we don't have to leave it there, so we've got the ability that we can browse and pick another location if we want to. So one of the things you will notice immediately with the program data folder is you can't see it anywhere in Windows Explorer, and that's because it's hidden by default. So what we can do is we can go in and change our folder options here and the view settings, and we can show hidden files and folders, and then you'll see it appears on the screen. We drill into that and the ComfortClient folder, then we'll see that the user related data that has been installed in the system. So one thing I can do is we can say, well, actually we don't want to put it there, A, because it's a hidden folder, and B, because we want to put it on a different drive, maybe even. So what we can do is we can go and look at our folder structure, and we can make a new folder. Let's call that CC data as a good example. So I can make a new folder, and then I can select that folder where I want to put my new user settings. So if I press OK now, it'll start running the application, and you'll notice that those folders disappear out of that default folder. Well, they've all now moved back to this folder that we specified. So you can repartition and move your user data around. So you'll notice now we've opened it. Now we haven't got any tabs in our workspace because we haven't set up any configuration yet to use with our system. So you'll also notice that the configuration menu here is greyed out. I don't allow people to change configuration settings until they've authenticated to Comfort at least once. So let's do that now. Let's go and log into the system. So you'll see the system automatically connected me to the UCM. Now ComfortClient supports Ethernet 3, Ethernet 2, Ethernet 1 type Ethernet cards. It also supports USB connections. It also supports serial connections. So whatever UCM type you've got, you can connect through any of those. I would recommend strongly the Ethernet 3 card, not only because it's the latest and greatest, but also because some of the features it has as well. Okay, so I can log in by typing the digits in the keypad and pressing enter. That's the wrong code, by the way. You'll see it says wrong code, wrong user code down the bottom here in the status bar. Or I can type it in down the bottom here in the user code section. Depending on whether you use the keyboard or you like typing with a mouse, you can use whichever mechanism you want. I'm going to put my user code in the user code box purely by virtue. I don't want you to see what it is. So there's my user code. I can either press log on here or I can press the enter button. I'll press the enter button just to show you. You'll see it's now logging me onto the system, and it's going through and it's interrogating, sending commands and queries back to Comfort to determine the initial state of the system. So what zones are open, what are the counters that we need to refresh on the floor plans, if I had any. Now this refresh cycle that happens here, you can trigger it by pressing the button up here on the application menu to refresh it again. So if I press that again, you'll see it's doing another refresh. The content of what's in that refresh package, i.e. what commands it sends back to Comfort, really depend on what items we have displaying on our floor plan. So it's intelligent, it works out what it needs to go and update. So you don't have to worry about changing any config here, it'll do it automatically for you. Okay, we're not going to go into too much detail at this stage about how to use the interface, and we're going to come on to that in later workshops. One of the things you can do once you've logged in, you'll see the configuration center is now unlocked. And now we can go in. If we look at options, one of the things we can do is persist the configuration menu options, which means that even when I log out, so I press N button here, when I log out, it's now not locked that out again, so I can actually start using that. So just to give you an example about getting started, if I went to Window Manager, the thing that sets up the tabs within this main workspace, I could do Insert, and I could call that whatever name I wanted it to be. I can go off and pick a floor plan I want that to associate with. There are other settings here we're going to go into later on in other workshops about how you can onwardly configure this product. But you can create in this tool here different tabs, you can move them around, you can set various properties of those tabs. Okay, so by selecting OK there, it's now going to load that floor plan in. So there we go, so there's the floor plan that I picked. You'll notice the tabs are down the right hand side of the screen. Again, there's an option that I can set in options that changes where that tab appears on the screen. So if I want it at the top, I can purely change it in options and the tab now appears at the top. If I now log into the system, let's log in, put my password in again, press the OK button there. So you see it's refreshing again. And you'll see immediately things change on the floor plan. These are active icons. These are things that change based on information that's come back from Comfort. So if I move around quickly just in this room, make the PRR trigger, you'll see that PRR triggers that change on the floor plan. Part of your floor plan design determines how active it is and what things you want to respond to. So it could be zones, it could be counter settings, it could be settings from temperature sensors, those sort of things. Okay, so let's log out and let's look at Floor Plan Editor. Floor Plan Editor is a standalone application. Again, it's going to ask you the very first time you start it where you need to find the CCLX file. And when you start that up, it's going to start up a blank screen, and you'll see there we can resize it. It's got a grid on it, various things that we'll talk about in future workshops. I can go in and I can open one of my floor plans. So let's open sample one again, just keep consistent. You'll see it opens my floor plan. I can unlock this one, for example. I can move it around, I can drill into it, I can change its properties, various things like I want to change the color of that suite from brown to this color. Lots of things we can do as we'll go through and we look at Floor Plan Editor in a bit more detail, rotate it, this sort of stuff. Okay. So we can, at any time, we can save that back to influence how our real floor plan looks. We're going to do a session on Floor Plan Editor because it's a session in its own right. Okay. So suffice to say, at the moment it's a separate application, or you can launch it from within ComfortClient as well. So let's go back to my website. One of the things that you'll notice on the Downloads tabs is we've got things like sounds. So let's download some system sounds. So these are the same sounds that you would get on your keypad. They're the same WAV files. They are produced by SciTech, so they're copyright SciTech. I have permission to use them within the ComfortClient application. So let's run our installer. Again, the only question it's really going to ask me is where I want to install them. Now, wherever you chose to install ComfortClient, it's going to go to that folder and a sounds folder beneath it. Let's set that going. Okay, so we've installed sound. So if we go back into ComfortClient again, you'll see now we can turn on sounds down the bottom here.
Sound on. Sound on.
We can also go to our sound manager, which manages our system sounds, and we can test some of our sounds as well. Okay, so adding sound in is a good way to improve the experience of your users within the product. Okay, for now, that's all I really want to show in terms of usability within ComfortClient. The final thing really is just to talk about uninstallation. So that's through Control Panel, Add Remove Programs that you probably know and love. You can right click and you can say uninstall, and it will remove any application specific files that have been created. Anything that you've changed beyond that will remain. So if you've gone in and created your own floor plans or edited floor plans, you will notice that some of this information remains. So you'll see it's removed everything out of the ComfortClient folder apart from the sounds, because that's a different installer. If we go back to our CC data folder, you'll see it's left things in place. So it would have left the log files in place. So we can drill into log files and we can see what we're doing within the product. One of the options you've got in ComfortClient is to decide how long those logs are kept for before it cleans them out. But they're a good source of information from a support perspective and to keep an audit trail of what's happening within the system. Any configs that happen within, so the ComfortClient, when you change an option, for example, that's written back to this client config file. The one we started when we started the sample up was this sample config. Okay, and when you create a shortcut on your desktop, you can just specify which sample config you want to use, or which config you want to use. Any connectors that are installed, any configuration to do with those are set up within these subfolders. Any of your floor plans, remember when we loaded those in, it hasn't uninstalled them because I've changed them. Any images that are associated with those floor plans, again, are installed in the system. So this is where your information is stored. You've got control over where you put it and who can see it. You can obviously lock things down with Windows file sharing rights as well if you want to. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a warm feeling for how to install and initially set up ComfortClient and how to then uninstall it if you don't want it anymore.